Hey everybody, it's your boy Big L PhD. Hey everybody, it is your boy Big L PhD. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much. The podcast has been growing. I really appreciate that. Well over 800 subscribers. I'm really happy about that, and really want to make it grow and go. So if you're new to watching this, consider strongly hitting that rating, subscribing, hit that bell notification, all that good stuff, right? So I want to have a controversial conversation for today, and that's about therapy. Is it worth it? Should you consider it? What do you hope to get out of it? All that. Now, for a point of contention, and I am not a therapist. I'm not a clinical therapist. I have taken or have completed a degree in psychology. I have been considering going back to school to get the therapist qualifications to open up my own practice and all that. So, and I'm considering it because I know that there's an issue with the number of men in therapy. And while I'm not strictly making this a men's channel. I do recognize the importance that males need with other males, right? Just like in school, there's a push for more black male instructors, teachers, for high school and under, because there's a need to see yourself represented, et cetera, et cetera. There's a need for the same type of need is needed for males in the therapy psychology sessions. And so just as I record this, last night, and if you're not following me on my other platforms, Captain Hunter's podcast and LMH Police Consulting, right, where I talk about police issues, and Captain Hunter's podcast, where I talk about more men's issues. That one's relegated strictly for men's issues. Those two platforms, on Captain Hunter's podcast, I made it towards, I made a video really aimed at a really disappointing therapist. Now, this is not a continuation of that, but this has been on my mind for a long time, and it just so happened I came across a disappointing therapist. That will be released tonight. Somebody's in a hurry, huh? That will be released tonight as I record this. So by the time you watch this, it may already be out. So there's a lot of problems with ladies in therapy, not or trying to do things along a male lines. It just is what it is, right? Males generally happen to think differently. They're more isolationistic, where ladies think more collectively, communally. There's nothing wrong with any of that, but it just in therapy sessions, I think it can be problematic. So the first thing that I want to say is, you really want to consider who your therapist is, right? You got to do your research about your therapist, who they are. So let me try to give some details here. So the purpose of psychology is really, and here's where I really want to get into this, right? The purpose of psychology is about getting you to be adjusted in your place. And whatever it is, it's about fitting you into the place and allowing you to thrive, to function, to change your mindset and change your behavior about the situation and status that you're currently in. Think about that. Sociology, which some of them can be therapists, right? Particularly if you get MSWs and all that. Sociology is really about trying to change the community. Change the community, and that can mean the community standards, community thought process. It can range for a lot of different things. But psychology is about changing you, the person, your mindset and your behavior. It's about understanding it, predicting it, and it's about changing it where it is. Again, I know what I'm talking about because that's what my degree is in. It wasn't about changing the society. My degree was in forensic psychology, so we looked at the criminal nature. We looked at the circumstances. We tried to take some predictive effort. What is going to change? What is it going to take for this person to change their thought process? Change change from a criminal, make the proper steps to being an upstanding citizen. That's what we looked at. So, but it was never about changing the environment. And that I think is a very, very big key. I followed, when I was studying psychology, I followed a man, Amos Wilson, very, very famous black psychologist, lived in the 1980s, died in 1995. Wrote a few books about this, and he had some talks that are still on YouTube. I really highly suggest people go listen to him, in which he talked about psychology and how it wasn't making anyone different collectively, right? And this is some of the issues that we have about making ourselves better, about our collective issues. They are collective issues. The way that we were raised collectively, the way that if we all make the jokes about our parents and how they, a black mother does this, a black father does that, black children behave this way. That is a sociological problem that needs to be changed in the community, more broadband, macro level, right? You can't micro your way out of this, right? Changing one person at a time, one person going to therapy is not going to change them. Change the overall, right? Because you've changed one person, but there's a whole collective out there that needs to be changed. So this is what Amos Wilson advocated for. It's what I'm advocating for, is a collective change. So when and if you are considering therapy, you really have to be very, very mindful of what you're hoping to get out of it, right? You may overcome your issues. You may have overcome your traumatic past, your traumatic upbringing, your traumatic relationship. You may have defeated that, but what have we really done for the collective? The people who traumatized you may be free to traumatize other people. So those are things that had to be considered and thought about and changed. And so those are things that I'm advocating for. So I'm not advocating for, let me be very clear about this. I'm not saying that people don't need therapy. Listen, if you need therapy, then you need to go to therapy, right? If you have trauma issues and all that, go to therapy, get the help that you need. But at the same time, I want you to be very, very cautious about the type of therapist that you're going to. I saw another therapist. A lot of these people are putting their stuff on YouTube. I saw another therapist who was advocating for more spirituality. Was bringing up all kind of horoscope type of, I can't even think of the term, astrology type stuff, like. And listen, that is not going to fit. It might fit with you. It doesn't fit with me. It doesn't fit with me when I'm listening to that lady. And I didn't listen to her for very long because it doesn't resonate with me. But if it resonates with you, then that's fine. Go get it. Go do it. Do what you got to do. Become the best version of yourself. But I want you to be very, very cautious about when you're going to therapy and understand the purpose of therapy. Purpose of psychology, purpose of therapy is about changing behavior and making you more adaptable in your present situation. That's really when I want to harp home. It's not about changing your circumstances. You think about marriage therapy, right? Marriage therapy is about trying to make the best behavioral changes to work within that particular framework. When the truth of the matter is that we need better upbringing, better training in order to be better in the marriage, right? And that's on the macro level, right? If 60% of our marriages are failing, then that is not an individual problem. That is a collective problem that needs to be addressed on the macro level, on the collective level. I teach this when I talk about my jobs, when I teach classes about business. If everybody's leaving your job, because I teach leadership courses, if everybody's leaving your job, it's not the job. It's not the individual, right? And so psychology and therapy would try to convince you to stay in this job and make the most of it, when maybe the prudent thing is to leave this job or leave that job. That's the prudent thing in order to be able to function holistically on a different level. Get a different job, et cetera, right? So I really that's really what I wanted to really kind of push home is therapy is trying to make you settled, completed, and work through the issues and while remaining in this situation. When maybe the best thing to do is escape the situation, is leave the situation, right? Don't become, I heard a minister one time say, we have become comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And that's a lot of times what therapy and psychology is seeking to do. And that's what social justice would seek to. That's why the other spectrum is social justice, in which they're trying to get you to, and they're trying to change the whole structure of things, right? It's not about, one individual case of less police brutality. It's about policing overall. It's not one thing about, again, with the policing analogy, it's not one thing about one person being arrested and being treated badly by the system because they're selling drugs. It's about the war on drugs, number one, and it's about the need to sell drugs because of our socioeconomic conditions in our capitalistic society, and that's what they want to change. So you have to understand, what's going on, and what the purpose of therapy is. You know, what is your purpose and reason for going to therapy? So again, if you got trauma, you got issues, you can't sleep at night, you're biting your fingernails and pulling out your hair and doing other social uh, um, social it's not the right word, other things to harm yourself, or you're grinding your teeth at night because of whatever, then you really got to consider, you know you know first I would consider an escape, and then I would consider, therapy in order to work through that the trauma that you have experienced, so you don't bring whatever trauma that is to your next relationship or to your next job, or take it on your children, etc., right? So understand that. And it isn't an easy thing, and I don't think that a lot of people really understand what they're signing up for when they're doing this, because therapy is becoming such a big thing and people want to go to it. And I said, or did I say, I can't recall if I said it or not, but I'm actually considering, yeah, I did say I'm considering going back to school to get this. That who wants to go back to school, and because I already have a degree, I can do it in a year, something like that, and then I got to do 3,000 hours before I can open up my own practice and all kind of stuff. I don't know if I want to do all that. Maybe I'll just stick to the life coaching thing. I don't know. I'm considering because I think that we need black male therapists. I think that we understand the plight that we're under, and I know that everybody thinks that they're special, and women think that they're special. Black women think they're super special, and now white males are feeling left out. Everybody's feeling left out of this, out of this situation, out of this, which is kind of crazy, but it's how people feel. So I hope I said something today that was definitive, that helped give a greater perspective of what you should expect if you're thinking about therapy and whether it's worth it or not. I think it's worth it if you are in a place that you really, really need some serious help adjusting to whatever it is. But first thing I would consider is, do you really need to be where you're at? Right? Do you really need to be there? I mean, you really have to work. If you had been in a marriage for 5 years, right, you shouldn't just give it up. But you got to take a valued assessment of what it is, and I think that we need to. I think that we need a collectivist revisit of what marriage is and should be, and I think that that's being done slowly but surely. Whether marriage is worth it and all that. But these are things that we have to consider on the collective, right? So when and if you're considering therapy, here are some things to think about. The therapist, male or female, of the same socioeconomic background, of the same, can they really relate, man? If your therapist can't relate, and I went to therapy before. One time I saw this, I had to drive this really ritzy neighborhood, and this middle-aged, she was a little bit older than me at the time, white lady comes out and all this stuff, and I didn't go. I didn't continue because I didn't think that she could relate to what I was talking about. You know, so those are things to think about. Um, when considering therapy and all that. So yeah, so I'm going to leave it off there. I think that I kind of laid out the what you should really be considering before going to therapy. You got to consider the therapist, their background, whether they can really relate to what you're saying, whether they really understand, where you come from, on a number of levels, right? Your socioeconomic background is so important. The way you were raised, right? If you can't be somebody from who was raised in a single family, single mother, experienced the traumas that many of us have suffered from being a single mother, and go to a therapist who has no clue, who grew up in a dual parent household and was able to vacation in the Hamptons or vacation in some ritzy spot every year or every 6 months. They can't relate to the trauma that you've had. They can't relate to that. They cannot relate to it. They can read a textbook, they can have friends who've experienced that, but they don't know the tacit, implicit, workable knowledge about dealing with people who have these traumas. They just don't have it. They just don't have it. So, and I think that we need more black male therapists, because I think that there's an issue. I think that there's really, really an issue, and a lot of other people are recognizing that too. As I tried to prepare for this, I read an article. I think it's in the Guardian about the need for more therapists, and that led me to another article. And there's a lot more men considering going into therapy, just like I am, because I recognize that the help that we need in order to adjust, in order to work in this society, is not coming from the ladies. And there's something like 76% of the new PhDs within the psychology field are ladies. And with them doing the research, they're setting up the theories. They're creating and establishing theories, and if you don't adhere to their theories, then you're out, and you can't get a license. And as a male, you won't be able to get a license because you're not following this path that we have laid out for you, and all this stuff. And many would say that they're counteracting many of the theories that were established in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, that were established by men. Okay. All right, but that does nothing. If it wasn't helpful at that time, and I'm not saying that it wasn't, but I'm just saying, if by chance it wasn't helpful at that time, how is it going to be even more helpful now, when men are suffering, when men are going through the things, men are leaving the workforce, men are refusing to marry, men are deleting themselves because of the social pressures of, and the ladies have no idea about any of this, and they're just called weak, and they don't know how to adjust, and they got their toxic masculines, therefore they can't adjust, and so good riddance to them, essentially. That's not going to fly. That's not going to fly. So if they're establishing the theories, they're writing the conference papers, they're the go-to articles and papers, that future therapists and future psychologists, sociologists, psychiatrists will be studying, then that can set us up for an extreme amount of disaster. Um, so it's something I'm considering. Fortunately, I already have a doctorate, so I wouldn't go back to school for another doctorate, but I would go for, just to get the certification. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm thinking out loud right now. Anyway, so I want to know your thoughts, your opinions. Have you gone to therapy? Have you, where have you been? Has it been beneficial to you? Have you gone to a therapist who has been of the opposite sex or of another race? Were they able to relate? Were they able to really kind of help you to be established? And also, I want you to think about the purpose of it. The purpose, again, of therapy, and I'm calling all clinical type of help therapy, right? I'm calling it all therapy, is really to help you to navigate and to change your behavior and to change your mindset, rather than make adjustments to the system. They're not about making adjustments to the system. The system is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. They want you to be able to adjust your mind frame, your thinking, in order to get in line with that. And you have to make the determination as to whether that is the way that you want to live your life. And that is one of the biggest things. And maybe the answer is just get out of the situation, clear your head, and then, deal with any past traumas that you have from that situation, because you don't want to bring them to someone else, whether it's a new job, a new boyfriend, new husband, new wife, etc. That's it. I'll leave it up there. If you made it this far, hit that rate, subscribe, and share button. Much love and peace, everyone.